The High Noon Hot Seat is brought to you by High Noon Podcast. Check us out at highnoonpodcast.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the High Noon Hot Seat, brought to you by High Noon Podcast. I am your host, The Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much.
And joining us today, we are honored to be joined by the head coach of the London Spitfire, Bishop. What's up, man? Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's pretty busy these days. You know, everyone's settling in, but we're having a great time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I can only imagine merely a day before the preseason starts, how crazy it's been over there. But let's get right into it. We've got a lot of stuff to cover, and as always, we like to start with just a little bit of background on you. So what got you into gaming and esports? What's your origin story?
Oh boy. I've always been a big fan of gaming. I remember my first game being Super Mario Worlds when it first came out when I was a wee little kid. But yeah, competitive esports, ever since StarCraft was released by Blizzard, I've always been a big follower of competitive esports. And since then, you know, I've been playing games like Dota, League of Legends, Dungeon Fighter, Counter-Strike, starting at 1.5, and a lot of other games, you know, on a semi-competitive level while pursuing education. Ideally, I wanted to, you know, really push it and dedicate a lot more time and effort into becoming a professional player. But yeah, I just had to study a bit, you know, go to school and whatnot, so I couldn't quite do that. But
yeah, I know we definitely feel those that same way. I know there's maybe not aspirations of being a pro esports player because I was just never that good, but definitely other things. But ended up going in a different direction in life. So always, I mean, at least you're still involved, obviously, heavily with an Overwatch League team and still heavily in esports. So that's awesome.
oh yeah.
So obviously, you know, you had a similar background to a lot of the players we've talked to, just being playing competitive games for a long time, being in gaming a long time. But what made you decide to start getting into Overwatch? Like, what was the allure of Overwatch that made you make the big plunge into Overwatch?
Okay, so after League of Legends, there wasn't really a big title that came out, right? And there wasn't really an opportunity for me to, you know, give going pro one last shot before, I don't know, becoming 30. I mean, 30 isn't an old age or anything, but when you're talking esports, you know, when everyone's like 19, age kind of does become a factor.
Yeah.
But Overwatch came out when I was in my senior year of college, and yeah, I wanted to give going pro one last shot before everything was too late. And just being a Blizzard game, I knew Overwatch was going to be the next big thing, so I kind of went all in on it. And yeah, that's how I started playing Overwatch. I fell in love with it immediately. I loved how fast-paced the game was, how every hero had their own identity and great storyline to back it up. So yeah, instantly fell in love with the game.
Yeah, as a 31-year-old, Blevins can cue the sad trombone slide music.
I was going to say, we know all about the either being 30 or hovering and closely approaching 30, so we feel your pain, man. We're really not that old, but when we're talking about the Overwatch League player or prospective Overwatch League players who can't play yet because they're not 18, it's like, I'm over 10 years older than these people. My bones.
Yeah, I just wish the game came out earlier.
Yeah.
But I did get my fair share of 6 months as a pro, and that was one of the most exciting moments of my life, really.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, I still am holding out hope because I'm pretty sure that at my 2100 gold ranking, I am in fact the best Moira player in NA right now. So it's just my teammates that keep losing. It's just my teammates that keep me down.
It's always the team. It's never you.
It's weird. No matter who I play with, my team always drags me down. It's kind of crazy. But enough about me and lying about how good I am. Let's move on. Obviously, you've been with Cloud9 for quite some time, and for those of you who don't know, who apparently have been living under a rock, Cloud9 is the organization that owns the London Spitfire. So When did you join the Cloud9 organization, and which rosters, obviously Overwatch focus, which rosters have you worked with as a coach?
I joined Cloud9 during Apex Season 2 in Korea when the roster was actually over here, and they didn't have a coach. So Monty, who's one of the casters for the Overwatch League, actually introduced me to our owner, our CEO, Jack, and that's how I started as a trial coach. That was way back in March this year, I believe. Time flies by. Yeah, I have since been with the Overwatch team as a coach. But now I'm proud to be their head coach now of the London Spitfire, and I've been with the team ever since.
Now, since you've been with them for a little while, you've worked with some of their older rosters, obviously, like you said, and that means that you were coaching for a roster that participated in Contender Season 0, and had kind of a bit of an underwhelming performance there. Can you tell us, maybe what you guys faced or some of the challenges that kind of contributed to the outcome there of that tournament?
Yeah, our performance was very poor. There's no getting around that. As time progressed, with the acquisition of 2 Korean players, communication issues kind of arose between our Western and Korean players, and this got to the point where it was impacting the team in a negative manner. So during Contenders, a collective decision was made to switch key player roles in order to remedy this problem. But unfortunately, the results were poor. In hindsight, I should have focused a lot more and worked with the players in smoothing out these communication problems. And I feel like I definitely may have bit a lot more than I could chew. I was confident that because I can speak Korean and English fluently, I could get these two groups of players to work together. These really gifted, talented players, but unfortunately, the language barrier was too much. At this point, I would like to sincerely apologize to our fans for the poor performance back then.
Well, as somebody that was rooting for you back then, I can tell you no worries from our perspective.
Yeah.
Where you got the big Overwatch League task in front of you to make up for it. Obviously, you guys got your sights set there, and I just thank you for sharing kind of that insight, because we've talked to a lot of these teams coming into Overwatch League that are combining Korean and Western players together, and we ask every single one of them, how have those challenges been working for you guys, and I mean, nobody's going to come out and be like, oh, it's a nightmare. Like, it's just not working. You know what I mean? They're not going to say that, but it's important to note that it's not just going to work for every single one of them. Like, there's going to be issues and individuals that struggle with it more than maybe the group does as a whole. But so it definitely creates an interesting dynamic. So it's great to get a little insight into there. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Welcome.
And want to focus a little bit more on the Spitfire organization as a whole. You guys are currently the only team in Overwatch League that's representing Europe. We've had a lot of fun with discussing and thinking about the rivalries that might come up. So who do you think will be the biggest rivals for London in this opening season?
Oh, man, the only team. Like, it's a lot of pressure, but yeah, we're confident that we're gonna make Europe proud, right? But there will be rivals. I mean, you have a bunch of players that have been hand selected. These guys are the top of the top, and this is all condensed into 12 teams, so every team is strong. But currently, we feel like New York Excelsior is going to be a strong rival this season, particularly because of not only the roster that they have, but their coaching staff and the meta at the moment really favors their type of play style. So I would definitely highlight New York Excelsior as our rival.
It's a good choice, man. It's a real strong choice. I was gonna grill you if you didn't pick them. So
Okay.
A strong team makes sense to go into divisions, but I since you don't have a camera and Bare Hands is in the chat, I'll just They're coming for you, bare hands.
What just happened? What just happened?
I did I pointed at my eyes and then pointed at the camera, like, they're London's coming for you, bare hands.
All right.
I think that's going to be, I agree. That's going to be a really good rivalry. And I mean, I've made it very public who I'm rooting for, but I'll wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, full disclosure, Blevins is a New York fan. I'm a Houston fan, but I will say I did put you guys at the top of my power rankings. Like I put you guys at #1, so I'll take a little credit for that there. But looking forward here, we're dealing with kind of Philadelphia not able to field 6 players on their roster for the preseason, so we feel compelled to ask: is there anybody, or is the full team in the USA yet?
Yeah, so a lot of the teams are having issues with the visa process, and this is because not everyone is American at the moment. Aren't American and they don't have their visas. We aren't an exception. Currently, Sungtae Bedosin Choi, who's our flex healer, who used to be the flex healer of Kongdu Panthera or C9 Kongdu, he hasn't made it right now, but he's scheduled to arrive on Friday. Now, hopefully that all works out, and we're all participating in the preseason with the full 12-man roster going in strong. But yeah, it's unfortunate that what happened to Philadelphia and what a lot of other teams are going through right now.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it on our, I guess, last, current, future podcast timing is always so weird, but our episode that we just recorded about how it's just really unfortunate. It's really just unfortunate for everyone. So it's good to know that at least most of your roster is here. But speaking of your 12-player roster, I mean, this has kind of been the looming question, that we on the show have had, as well as many people in the community, about how you're handling the, basically just copy paste 2 full rosters and mash them together. How are you dealing with that with scrims? Are you doing internal or external scrims, or maybe both? Are you keeping the 2 rosters the same? Are you mixing and matching? Like, this is kind of at least from my perspective, this is like the most interesting thing. Like, what are you guys doing with that, like, huge amount of talent from 2 separate teams? How are you guys handling that?
Yeah, definitely. This is probably the biggest question we had on the coaching staff as well when we first signed both teams. But just to be clear, Fury and Nuss, who in order are our flex tank and main support players, they weren't a part of Kongdu, and they were picked up individually. Basically we have 2 full teams. Right now, we're currently planning on maintaining the old rosters before we actually consider moving forward with merging the 2 teams. And the reason why we're doing this is because merging is a pretty delicate process. And we'd like to take all the necessary precautions in order to ensure a strong roster with players that can synergize with each other. So we're currently, observing and making sure that we don't rush through this process, since we do have time. We have a full month here with the preseason, thank God. So we'll have to look forward and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, the old mantra of "don't fix it if it's not broken" comes to mind when you've got 2 very talented rosters. And as a follow-up, and I know you don't need to give away any strategies or anything for Overwatch League. We're not trying to extract, although I kind of am because I'm an Excelsior fan. But do you have any insights as to, maybe which roster you're going to, start, or is it going to be like a matchup-based thing, or maybe a map-based thing? Is there any sort of insight or a high-level maybe thought process behind which roster is going to play when?
Well, for the preseason, we'll be having all players participate and play. So you can expect both teams playing at any given point during the preseason event. So
gotcha.
Yeah, that's as far as where we're going right now. We honestly really don't know how we're going to approach the Overwatch League right now. Kind of still need to, like I said, tread carefully here and see how things develop.
Yeah,
it's probably something that the answer would be different every week going into it, honestly. Like, you might have different plans for each opponent, so it's tough in general to provide a overall or umbrella answer to that question, I'm sure.
Yeah, I figured I'd try to sneak it in there. But more specifically on your coaching staff, now, do you have different coaches and staff that focus specifically on mechanics and individual aspects of the game, or are you kind of just like a group of coaches that are all tackling everything all at once?
Oh, definitely. There is some division of labor here. We have a total of 4 active staff on the Overwatch team, excluding our managers, and I would like to introduce them, actually, I guess. Our analyst, who is Gabe, was previously the coach of LW Red and Blue, so he's really close with the New York Excelsior players, right, since they used to be his players. He specializes on the micro aspects of the game, individual aspects of the game, and how players perform individually, mechanic-wise and whatnot. Whereas J-Feel, who's been the coach of Kongdu, and Changun, who's been the coach of GC Busan, and I focus more on the macro aspect of the game, developing strategy, counter strategy, and overall direction of how we're going to be practicing stuff. So, I mean, overall, we have 4 minds, working together. It's a lot better than having just one. And I like to think that with the diverse coaching staff that we have, everyone from everyone being from different teams, and 2 of us actually being former Overwatch League professional players, I think we have a lot to bring for our players in order for them to really focus on the game.
Yeah, for sure. And it makes a lot of sense. We've talked to most of the teams we've talked to have a pretty diverse coaching staff, for sure. Death, you want to take the next one?
Yeah. So looking forward, we do have a preseason match and an opening day match here against the Los Angeles Gladiators. And also in week 1, you have a match against the Florida Mayhem. Have you gotten much of a chance to look forward at those matchups and maybe game plan for them at all? And how do you feel about them going into them?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we've been practicing since day 1 we arrived here, and I guess what we're doing as a whole right now is really trying to adjust to the playstyle of Western teams, and also adjust to the LAN client, because it's a lot different than the live servers in that it has a higher tick rate and whatnot. So far, every day has been a learning experience, and what I can say now is that we're confident going into both matchups. To clarify a little bit, I mean, I said that we're adjusting to the playstyle of Western teams, and I feel like that Western teams have, ever since Overwatch came out, really been solidifying key compositions and strategies and pushing them rather than changing it up. And so we're trying to adapt to those extreme compositions that a lot of the Western teams are sharpening and polishing, and really pushing boundaries with. So I think we're confident going into that. We have a lot of flexible players. We have 2 players for each role. I think we have all the tools necessary to take them on.
Excellent. Well, I know we can't wait to see it, so we'll get our first taste of that coming up later this week. But best of luck to you guys going into both of those matchups in week 1 as well. Looking specifically at the roster, has there been any individual players who've kind of emerged as leaders within the team and kind of helped bridge the divide between the 2 rosters and bring them together to work as one unit?
Yes. Funny enough, both of our main tanks, our Winston players, Gesture and Fissure, have shown a lot of responsibility and leadership so far. They've helped not only bridge the gap between the 2 teams, but also between the players and the staff as well. They've been a ton of help. They have great attitude. I would like to give a shout out to them here, Gesture and Fissure.
Nice. It's always, I mean, I'm sure you kind of have some notions going into it who's going to be a leader, but I know and I'm sure Death, you've seen this as well, just in like traditional sports and other group activities, like some people just come out of the woodwork and really kind of shine in that environment. So that's awesome to hear. So now talking a little bit about some players who aren't on your team specifically, because I'm sure you have great things to say about everyone on your team. But who are some of the players that aren't on your team that you think will surprise the general public once Overwatch League starts?
For this season specifically, I think not only me, but a lot of the coaches or players even in the Overwatch League would say that Fleta would actually be a nice surprise for the general public, because he's an extremely intelligent player. He's a great flex DPS, and he has the mechanics to back it up. So now, just to throw out additional information out there, he used to be on the Flash Lux team. Team has constantly been in Apex, but he wasn't quite given the opportunity to shine. And I think now that he's in the Overwatch League, you know, he's gonna show everyone what he's capable of. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for Fleta.
Yeah, he's the player we talked about kind of being in a bit of a positional battle. Soul has to replace Eska and Who Are You from their rosters, so it'll be interesting to see how they kind of divvy up the labor there. But yeah, Fleta is definitely kind of at the top of the list for working his way into a good amount of playing time there for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, we have fallen victim to the we're in a bad time zone to watch a lot of Apex and a lot of Korean matches. So I think a lot of the Western world is really gonna, you know, have an eye opener when they see a lot of the Korean players. And like, I mean, a lot of people have seen, you know, the Lunatic Highs, the GC Busans, the, you know, C9 Kongdus, just because they're the highlight matches. But some of these other players who have, you know, been in playoff situations but not in the finals of Apex, for instance, I think a lot of people are going to be turned on to those, so that's going to be great to see. In terms of teams, again, your team excluded, what team do you think is going to be a big surprise in Overwatch League this season?
Well, honestly, every team is going to be a huge surprise because, like I said, these guys are the top of the top, and all these players are all these top players are jammed into 12 teams. Like, there's so much talent here, and in the sincerest way possible, I honestly think that every team is going to be a huge surprise. Like, the season 1 Overwatch League is going to be really exciting to watch because it's so unpredictable what's going to happen. There is no precedent. Because this is the first league, so yeah, can't say which team's going to be the biggest surprise here. Really, I would like to know.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, right? Like, which team is going to really come out of the woodwork here? I agree with you. I think it's going to be. I mean, everyone is excited for Overwatch League Season 1, and I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Blevins. I heard him say Houston, but let's just move on before he can
definitely did not say Houston.
He didn't not say Houston. That's that much can be sure. But I want to shift gears a little bit here, Bishop, and ask you some questions that our Discord community came up with here and submitted for you. Okay. Oxymoronic wants to know what you think the biggest strengths of the C9 Kongdu and the GC Busan rosters are individually. And you know, I know you talked about how you're focusing more on keeping them together and building off the pre-established synergy that they have, but maybe talk a little bit about how you'd go about meshing the two together.
Okay. This is a pretty generic division between the two groups. Obviously, there's a lot more going into this. It's a lot more complicated, but traditionally, Busan has been more of a heavily team-based, synergy-oriented team, and I think that is why the Busan roster really sweeps and went on the Royal Road during Apex this year. On the other hand, Kongdu would be, and it kind of has been ever since I was in the team as well. It's Kongdu is a very mechanic based team that kind of really oppresses the opponent team simply by just crushing them through mechanical superiority. So yeah, I think that would be the general idea here. going into how we're going to be meshing the two strong rosters that we have at the moment. Hopefully that answers the question.
Sure, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to answer without giving you know, a nod to too much of your strategy. So, but we do have another question here from Pauhai. What is the difference in your coaching style when working with Asian teams versus Western teams? Is there anything you do differently?
This is a question that I receive a lot, and just to clarify, I want to say Korean teams instead of Asian teams, because I've only coached the Korean team at the moment. So we'll go with the Korean team and Western team division here. But I think essentially it's the same, right? But the only difference is how you approach it. This is purely my opinion based on my experience. But with Western teams, I've found out, I have personally found that facilitating an open forum type of environment, you know, where everyone's talking back and forth, you know, voicing their opinions, players and coaches, has worked the best. Whereas with the Korean team, a more closed, one-sided coach to player / team type of approach has worked best. And that sounds really hard to follow. Just to make this easier, I guess it'd be like with Western teams, you know, you're going to go from the macro to the micro in order to solve problems. You're going to look at the bigger picture, then narrow problems down, and then tackle those with the team, with everyone talking. Whereas with the Korean team, you're going to look at the smaller issues and then start expanding on those, like taking out the big fires and then kind of, you know, improving overall after that, which is more in line with traditional Korean esports coaching, in my opinion. So yeah, there really is no difference when you're coaching. It's just, you know, the approach, in my opinion, which would, I think, have to do with cultural differences, you know. So yeah, that's what I would have to say based on my experience. It's a good question.
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. I think it's a type of thing where I think we'll start to see that. I guess we'll call it the Korean style, though. I mean, you know, it's just based on what you're saying, the Korean style of coaching and that philosophy and that process. I think we'll see that adopted more as we move on. I mean, if you look at how traditional sports are coached, you know, in the bigger world, that's pretty much how it always is. It's not like when I was playing basketball in high school, it was never the coach like, okay, so what do you guys think about this play? Let's talk and discuss about this play and what's the best thing? What do you guys think is the best thing? It's like, no, the coach has been coaching for 40 years, and when he says something, you do it.
Yeah, otherwise you won't play.
Right. Otherwise you don't play, or you're running in practice. So I don't think, obviously, I don't think it's going to be like that. But I mean, we're seeing now the shift. Well, we're not really seeing the shift yet, but in the West, it's like, okay, all of the players right now in Overwatch, the players and the coaches have the same amount of experience, right? Everyone, essentially, with a few exceptions, has been playing since Overwatch came out and was invented. So
Correct.
there's really no basis for, you know, necessarily a coach having, you know, years of extra experience, because the game's only been out for a couple of years, and that, I guess, mentality is not instilled in everyone in the West when you don't have that sort of coaching structure in place. So I would be very surprised if we see that sort of like democracy almost type of style bleed into the future seasons of Overwatch League. But moving right along, we had another question from Totemly Drunk. He asks, what advantages does having two full rosters have for in-house scrims?
There are a ton of advantages, and this kind of comes along from, you know, Kongdu had Panthera, they also had Uncia, and so based on these experiences here, yeah, first of all, you have the option to have a fully controlled environment. Like you can do what you want in that scrim. So say, for example, your one team is having trouble pushing point A on King's Row, then you're just going to do King's Row over and over again, but you're not going to go through the whole map, and you're not going to switch attack and defense. You're just going to have that one team that's having trouble pushing point A on attack, push point A numerous times over and over and over again until you finally develop a strategy that everyone's comfortable and confident with. So having that controlled environment is a huge plus. Following that, you also get to conceal your strategies from other teams, because unfortunately there are only 12 teams that can really scrim each other in the Overwatch League on the LAN client over at the Blizzard Studios. So you can conceal your strategies by not scrimming other teams, but instead scrimming in-house scrims. Let's see here. Another big advantage worth mentioning is how the players kind of learn from each other. You know, each team has their well, we're essentially the same team now, so each group of players has their own advantages and disadvantages, weaknesses, strengths. But by playing each other and giving feedback to each other after each round or scrim block, that is a lot of value right there. So there are a lot of advantages having two full rosters.
It definitely makes a lot of sense. And I personally am interested to see if we, how we see that play out, and if we see teams pick up those extra players to fill out the roster for that exact reason. But moving along, I weeded out some of the troll questions, but I had to keep a couple in there. So we had Hippo, who also goes by Fuel Fan 0, so you can kind of see where this question is leading. He says, Bishop, since Spitfire is composed of 2 previously teamed up 6-stacks, although you mentioned that one of the teams is not a full 6-stack, but you get the drift. He says, does this mean that when Dallas Fuel beats London, that it will count as 2 wins?
2 and I hope not. Like, I'm gonna have to check the rule book here, right? I mean, if we lose, right? I just want to say our plane is gonna need some fuel to fly. So.
Ooh, shots fired back.
Yeah. They'll be burning plenty of fuel this season. Maybe next season once they're actually traveling a little bit more often. But so clearly, you called out New York, but clearly our Discord had a little bit of a different idea as far as who might be a decent rivalry for you guys. So in the interest of helping them push that along, Icarium, who's quite a jokester, wants to know.
Notorious Brit in our Discord channel.
Yes,
awesome.
big London fan. He's wondering, when Birdring is busy just single-handedly dismantling the Dallas Fuel, what are the other 11 team members going to be doing at that time?
I'll try to answer this as seriously as possible, but
there's no need to answer this seriously.
The rest of the players are going to be making sure that the window for Birdring to do whatever he does best, the 11 players are going to be making sure that window stays open as long as possible. Is essentially what the game is all about. Tanks will be making rooms, supports will be creating a scenario where you can really stall and create room for your DPS to do what they do best, just deal damage. So yeah, that's
I was
my
hoping
serious answer right there.
I was hoping for something more along the lines of like sipping tea and eating crumpets to kind of get acclimated with the London feel.
Tea and crumpets.
Pinkies up, like you gotta be fancy about it. Yeah, we love to give Icarium some grief, not because he's a Brit, but because he hates all NA sports organizations. But,
wow. All right.
Yeah, nonetheless, he's a fun guy to have around, and he'll be loud in his rooting for you guys. You can count on him. Another question here from Caesar James, a little bit more on the serious side. But what efforts have you made in order to integrate the 2 teams into feeling like one combined organization? Maybe icebreakers, or if you've just been relying on internal pugs or what have you.
I'm not joking here, but Overwatch has pretty much been our icebreaker and a means of integration. Like, yeah, just these players, they know each other. They've known each other in the past, and they respect each other as players, and they're just playing together, playing against each other has really brought these guys together. Um, but in the future, with the holidays coming up, me and the staff have thought of this little cute thing where we create a Secret Santa event for the players, because Secret Santa is not a thing in Korea really. So it'll be fun to, have everyone, get their own Secret Santa. And since we unfortunately won't be going back to Korea to spend the holidays with their families, hopefully we can create a nice family over here and have a good time by ourselves. And spending time together that way, hopefully the players will really integrate into one full team like that.
A fun idea you might want to try would be, I don't know if you've heard of the term Yankee swap, or it's also called Nasty Christmas, but as
White Elephant.
as a fan of other teams in the division, maybe give that a try. That might sow some discord between you guys for us.
I've not heard of this.
It's like this weird system of like you trade gifts, or like you pick somebody else's gift, or you're like, I don't like this one, so I want to open a random one. And it's they did it on
There's
the
a lot
Office
of rules
or whatever.
Yeah. There's a lot of
well,
rules
it
involved,
actually sounds like a lot of fun.
It is
It
fun.
would be
a
lot of fun, yeah, as long as everybody knew
it.
what was going on going into it.
You could
It would
stream
be pretty fun.
You definitely need to, regardless of how you do it, you definitely need to post pictures of what everyone gets. I think that's going to be the biggest thing around Christmas time, is seeing what the players and staff are getting for each other. I'm putting it out there now. We need to see that.
All right.
For all the teams. So anyone listening, make sure you put that on here. But so the one question we've been asking all of our, after we thought of the question, we've been asking all of our Overwatch League team affiliated staff and players just this basic question. And I know it can kind of be a big one, but why should our listeners be fans of the London Spitfire?
The question, huh?
Yeah.
Question. All right. Well,
the $1 billion question.
Well, who doesn't like airplanes, right? I mean, airplanes are amazing. I still remember that day when I was a little kid in Iowa, and I went to an air show with my dad. It was a magical experience to see those flying machines rip through clouds and
crowds.
Oh man! Oh god!
Went horribly wrong.
Big mistake. Through clouds, right? And leave trails of art. The colored smoke and whatnot behind them, writing letters, and I like to think that we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to be that big plane in the Overwatch League. We'll be flying aces high and aiming for the sky. So, I mean, it'd be great if you could join us on our little air trip, our little journey in the air. So,
well, I won't say whether or not it contributed to my picking the Houston Outlaws, but I personally am too tall to fit in airplanes. So, that's the only drawback. Like, they're definitely really cool, and I would love going to see an air show. But I don't think you could cram me into a Spitfire to save my life.
I'm sure we have enough room.
I think you're underestimating how big Deathblow is. He's the largest. He's the largest human.
Wow.
That's mostly a fact. But yeah, so we just got a couple wrap-up questions here, more general, off the cuff here. One kind of last one relating to Overwatch League, but you guys just finished up the first player summit. It looked like everybody had a really good time with it. And can you tell us a little bit about some of the topics that were discussed without going into too many specifics and getting yourself in trouble?
Yeah, sure. The summit was great, mainly because all the players finally, and staff and Blizzard employees, we all got together and we could actually see each other. We shook hands. Hugged each other. It was an exciting experience. But some of the topics that were discussed were about player conduct, obviously Overwatch League rules, how the tournament was going to be played, schedules and whatnot. But there were also a lot of speakers that came by to keep things really juicy and fun. and we had Commissioner Nate Nanzer answer a lot of questions. We had Jeff Kaplan, the Vice President of Blizzard. He unfortunately couldn't make it in person. He left a video, which reminded me of the all the YouTube videos that he puts out, the auto-tuned ones and whatnot. But the yeah, and then yeah, we also had the MLB pitcher for the Minnesota Twins, Trevor May. Trevor, I forget his last name. But yeah, he was there to give the players a lot of insight on what it meant to be a professional and how a lot of game enthusiasts out there would look up to the players, and how to keep your mindset at a professional level to ensure you perform consistently and well. So it was a great experience. Blizzard was super transparent about everything. They answered a ton of questions. We had a lot of questions, me included, and it was a great experience.
Awesome. Well, definitely looked like a good time. I was glad to see the players were able to learn a lot from it and enjoy it. So good job by Blizzard there. I think that sort of event is going to be really important, especially for new players that are joining the league, to kind of get a taste for, what it's like and to get a lot of the, the conduct stuff. We're seeing some examples of, suspensions and things like that lately. So it's just great to see Blizzard kind of leading the charge on that and trying to head off as many of those at the pass as they possibly can.
Yeah. Well, and two things. We got the write in from Bare Hands, who's in the chat right now. He mentioned so the first is the pitcher was Trevor May from the Minnesota Twins.
Right. Okay. So it was Trevor May. Okay.
Yeah, it was Trevor May. Yeah, he does some stuff. He does some podcasts and stuff, and he also streams Overwatch as well.
Yes, he does.
Yep, I've been following him a decent amount lately. I actually got to meet him briefly at BlizzCon too, so he was a cool guy.
He's tall.
Yeah, he's super tall. I think he's like 6. I think he's like 6'6" or 6'7". I think, but I mean, he's literal...
Somebody I can look in the eye.
Yeah, it's true.
On an airplane either.
He's a literal professional baseball player. And then Bare Hands also mentioned, I don't know if this is true or if it was maybe a little tongue in cheek, but he said most of the questions were from Jake.
That is true. Jake had a lot of questions.
Yeah, I saw in the Nate Nanzer Reddit AMA today, he made a little offhanded comment about how Jake asked him 83 questions, which is awesome.
Super funny.
It might have been 83. It might have been 83 questions.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear. Two kind of quick wrap-up questions here. What do you think about Moira after she's been introduced? Do you think she'll have much of an impact on the meta going forward?
Right now, I don't think she's going to have much of an impact because at the highest level of play, currently data shows that she doesn't really have a spot across all the maps. She may have a niche spot every now and then because her healing output is phenomenal, but in order to put her in, you're going to have to either drop Mercy or you're going to have to drop Zenyatta, and these two heroes at the moment are currently way too valuable to drop. You're sacrificing a Discord, you're sacrificing Resurrections and Valkyrie. So the other question would be, can we fit her in as a third healer, which has been done in the past for a limited time by LW and Lunatic High as well, especially on Hollywood point A defense. Like, will this develop? We'll have to see. But yeah, right now as it stands, I would say that she doesn't really have a spot, so her impact will be minimal unless a significant patch directly or indirectly allows her to gain a spot in the six heroes. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna use that as my excuse for why I'm not in Overwatch League. It's because even though I am the best Moira in NA, it just doesn't matter. She just doesn't have a spot. So we'll be waiting for.
She's a ton of fun to play. I love Moira, but yeah.
Yeah, she seems really high impact, but like really counterable at the same time. I actually really like the spot her as a hero is in. Speaking as a comp mode player, not necessarily a tournament player. She just feels like she's one of those heroes that either you can roll out with. You might have to switch off of it if like there's a diva around or something like that. But if you notice something about their composition and maybe they don't have an answer for it, you can switch and just have a huge impact on the rest of the map.
Yep. And the last one we've got here is what are your thoughts on Blizzard World? Obviously still in PTR, but have you gotten to take a look at that at all?
Yeah, I had the privilege to play it once in the PTR. With the busy schedule, but I loved the colors and how vibrant the map was. My personal favorite of the map is like my go-to favorite used to be the piñatas in Dorado. They get old, you blow them up, whatnot, but the balloons, that's where it is in Blizzard World. It's just, I don't know. I just love, setting those balloons, freeing them, letting them, fly into the air and whatnot. So the atmosphere of the map is great. I mean, I wish Blizzard could actually, make a Blizzard theme park like that. So I'd be going there every time. That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be. I'm pretty sure I would work a minimum wage job there just to get there and be there.
I can see it now. It would be like, you've just won season 1 of the Overwatch League. What are you gonna do now? I'm going to Blizzard World. The whole corny thing they do after every Super Bowl. Just bring it right over.
Yeah, you mean the corny thing that Tom Brady does every year?
Shut your mouth.
Hey-oh, had to get that dig in there. Okay, Bishop, we don't want you to get in between our co-hosts fighting because
it's getting ugly, man. You better get out of here.
Deathblow is about to get out and drive his car up here and just let my house on fire.
Deliver the Deathblow.
Ooh, got it in there. But yeah, Bishop, that's all we've got, man. Huge thanks for being on the show. And the floor is yours. Is there any shout outs or anything that you want to throw out there?
I mean, first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to be back in the States, and there's a lot of attention going on here. I just want to say, I just want to give a shout out to all our European fans out there. I mean, we are a Korean team representing Europe at the moment, but I mean, I'm confident that we're gonna make you guys proud, and if you guys root us on, we won't let you down. So, this is gonna be an exciting season. Just gonna be a lot of ups and downs, but if you guys, stick it through with us, it'll be a fun experience. So.
At a bare minimum, you'll have a fan in me if you do your part and don't let Boston get a single win off you. That will be more than enough for me.
Okay, all right.
Awesome.
Is this coming from baseball or?
No, football.
No, I'm a football fan. My team is in the same division as New England, so
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Same ownership. There's just a lot of
there.
there's a lot of pent up hatred from.
They didn't have a chance with me personally, no matter what happened.
Yeah,
gotcha.
it just happened that I gravitated towards the Excelsior. So
that's about the only thing we agree on is not
Boston. But again, we don't want you to get caught up in this whole inter-host battle. But Bishop, again, huge thanks for being on the show, man. Anytime, you're always welcome back. You're always a friend of the High Noon podcast, and of course, we'll get you that invite over to the Discord where you can hang out and let the fans bask in your distinguished guest status in the Discord channel. But
special.
We give you your own special color too. But guys, that is going to be it. Again, huge shout outs to Bishop and to Spitfire for doing this interview. But that is going to be it, guys. Remember, you can always check out everything at highnoonpodcast.com. But for Bishop, for Deathblow, I am the Blevins. And remember, guys, it's High Noon.